So Ravin, welcome to Azerbaijan.
Thanks, Ad. It's lovely to be here. Never been here before. What a lovely country.
First time?
Yes, indeed.
So what's your impression?
Stunning. From the airport to the buildings to the main streets, people are super nice. It's been very impressive.
Have you tried the food?
Yes, it's as good as the people.
Did they give you kebabs as well?
Yes, I have.
It's amazing here. It's amazing here. But welcome, and we're actually quite honored to have you here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah, because with PASHA, we try to be, and we need to be, very innovative.
Yeah.
We really feel like with our purpose, where we want to be a responsible corporate citizen, improving people's lives, people in Azerbaijan and the countries where we operate. So we continuously have to think about our organization and how we serve not only the people in our organization, but also to serve the countries. We continuously think about the future, and your field is the future of work. So maybe start with a broad question, which is about how do you see the future of work nowadays?
Yeah, we've spent 2 days, talking about this with the CEOs and your colleagues. I think those twin forces, of the advancements of AI and technology and this continued uncertainty in the world with volatility and velocity of change, I think are really driving us towards business models and people models that are ever more agile, flexible, resilient. And I think it's causing us to question many long-held beliefs about how we organize work, how we connect people to work, how we engage people in our businesses and our mission.
Yeah, because I really liked, because you mentioned it as your history lesson, which you apologize. I'm sorry for the history lesson. And you talked about the several industrial revolutions we went through. And you also talked a lot about the fourth industrial revolution. Do you think the fifth then is coming?
I personally think that we're probably in the middle of the fifth, actually.
Yeah. So what can we do as organizations to really prepare for it now? Because we talked about the future of work, and we talked about how knowledge is more and more becoming a commodity, and skills are becoming a currency for people to make careers and also to focus on. And that we adjust our organizations to it. But how do we, as an organization, prepare ourselves for that? So how do we get the right sense of urgency to be able to prepare for such a thing like that?
Yeah, I think personally the journey that you are on of engaging your CEOs, getting them to sort of step outside, to look kind of outside in as to how the world is changing, to understand the pivotal role that AI is going to play in every single business, and then translating that, not just at a strategic level, but down to the level at which everyone works, I think is absolutely the right way to do it.
Right. And does size matter? Because we are 26,000 people today, white collar, blue collar, very diversified. Does size play a big factor in how well you're able to evolve or revolutionize yourself to that particular new world?
Yeah, I think your size and diversity is truly a competitive advantage. I think as you think about a world which is so uncertain, where we don't know what comes next, the diversity of perspectives, of skills, of businesses, not only is a hedge from a portfolio perspective, You guys have obviously known that and seen that. But I think your ability to redeploy skills at scale and speed from kind of sunset parts of the business to the sunrise parts of the business to emerging opportunities, I think is truly a competitive advantage. And I think, skills, having a skills-powered architecture could be the grease, if you will, that powers that.
Right. And one of the things I took away, which really stuck with me, is that you mentioned that we focused a lot on organizations in the past, like how we build organizations from traditional hierarchical organizations to really have more networked organizations. Right. But to make them work, you said culture is the pivotal point to focus on. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think of, as you said, the evolution that we talked about, in the hierarchical structures that we had, structure was the control mechanism, right? Organizational structures, job hierarchies, the way leaders were developed, all of those structural mechanisms and processes helped govern the way behavior was expressed, the way people, performed, etc. But as we move into this volatile world, what we start to see is those structures are actually the biggest impediment to the company staying relevant. And that structure starts to give way. And the new control mechanism, as we talked about, Lena Neyer's great quote, that culture is the new structure.
Right.
A culture becomes a thing that connects disparate interests to a common mission and purpose, and is the thing that connects people to the organization in ways that, frankly, structure could have in the past.
Right. And then how, because just to build upon that, because I know we spoke about this also in the workshop we did with all the CEOs, is that you can develop and evolve your organization towards a new model, but you need to make sure that in line with that, in the same speed, you develop your culture.
Yeah.
Is there any guidance you can give us on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, we talked at length about ensuring that there is clarity as a CEO group around where are we headed as a North Star. What are those key enabling factors that need to be in place to transition? What are the parts of our legacy that we see as being assets for the future, powering our future, versus being honest about the parts of our legacy that are, frankly, liabilities to the future, that hold us back, that hold the organization back, etc.
And the fact that we are because we don't operate in one country. We are multi-country, and we're also rapidly evolving our thinking around hybrid working, remote workers, etc. Does that play a factor?
Absolutely. I think it's so fascinating, Ad, because in the past, we would define culture as ending at the walls of the factory that we all worked in.
Right.
And today we have a whole new set of digital artifacts that reshape culture. And, that connection is less about we're in the same space doing the work together, but increasingly, what are those digital tools? What are the routines? What are the ways in which we engage and connect with people over time and space that are going to shape that culture?
Right. And you talked about, so thank you. So you also talked about, and we mentioned this before, that skills are becoming the currency, right? So as an employee, how can we prepare ourselves for that level of understanding where I have a certain set of skills, but to be able to advance in my career, also to continue to play a meaningful role in the organization, I need to keep on developing my skills. Like how do I prepare myself for that?
Yeah. It's really comes down to a sense of identity, right? If you think about it, Ad. So in the past, we've all often identified with the job that we do.
Right.
And I think what we need is a fundamental pivot from I am the job that I do to I am this sort of entity with endless potential. I am able to acquire new skills. I use that quote at the end today, Alvin Toffler's quote of, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read and write. It'll be those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Wow.
And I think our ability, it's almost like I tongue-in-cheek wrote a piece that, if Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. My friend Sherry Turkle, the psychologist, said in 2019, I share, therefore I am. I think our mantra in this era needs to be, I learn, therefore I am.
Wow, that's a lot of wisdom. Thank you for sharing that. No, I learned a lot from this.
Thank you.
Is this also an answer to how we can really deal with a multi-generational workforce? Because we've been struggling with this, right? Because the average age of our employees is quite young. New generations are up and coming. I'm no doubt of an older generation, and you and I maybe work
as am I.
in a very different mindset the younger generations. Yeah. But is this maybe an answer to be able to deal with the multi-generational workforce?
Yeah, I think it's an answer. I also think it's a challenge, Ad, and we talked about this, that perhaps the new generation wants something different and is maybe a bit more willing to accept greater mobility, greater risk, versus perhaps people of our era are looking for more stability and the belief that the promise of employment is going to continue. And so I do think managing this change is going to be one that needs to be nuanced and needs to be sensitive to the different needs of the generations. And as you know, we have sometimes four generations in the workforce at the same time. So this change journey is not an easy one, but I do think it's one that could be a win-win for everyone involved if done right.
And if you were in my shoes, right, and you have to start to position this within the company, like what will be your message to the company to say, this is like there isn't really no escaping that this would happen. Eventually, this will happen. So how do we get started with that?
Yeah, I think the where your CEOs and HR leaders are is absolutely in the right place. The recognition that this starts with solving a business problem, right? This is about ensuring that PASHA as a group continues to be economically viable, continues to grow, because when PASHA is successful, its employees are successful, the countries are successful, there is this cascade effect. But it's going to ask for change from everyone involved, right? Leaders needing to change their mindsets of how they operate. Your managers needing to change from the mindset of believing I own my people to I'm actually having a bigger impact when I share my people.
Right.
And employees willing to actually step outside and recognize that each of us needs to keep perpetually reinventing ourselves and stop putting obstacles in our own way for our continuous growth and invention.
So the future work is actually good news for both employers, leaders, managers, but also employees.
Yep, that's what I believe. If we approach it in the right way.
And what message can we give to universities and schools around the world to say, help us to prepare our workforce for this movement?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's one that's not often asked by companies because they tend to view their ecosystem as being their immediate ecosystem.
Right.
But I do think there is a real role for organizations to sort of, I talk at length of moving away from a tech forwards view of work to a work backwards view. And I think that work backwards view needs to extend to how does education need to change, both in terms of what is taught and how it's taught, so that we've got a workforce that can keep reinventing. I've seen several universities make the promise to their graduates that once you graduate, you can keep coming back and for free access all of our learning resources. To me, that is a big mindset shift from saying, my responsibility is only for the 3 or 4 years that you're here, to actually saying my responsibility is to keep you relevant, even if it's 30 years after you've left that 4-year degree.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, right? So maybe this remember this quote we often used to say from companies where this is lifetime employment. Where we then say, well, that's not true.
Right.
We lied to you, right? Because now we are restructuring and you have to go.
Yeah.
To now go to a place where maybe it's not lifetime employment, but it is lifelong learning that we offer.
Precisely.
So because I think you also mentioned in the workshop that we did with the CEOs to say that companies are now preparing in their learning modules also for people to have learn skills which you can use outside of the company.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's going to intensify, you think?
I think so, because I think the volatility of change and the velocity of movement of people is only going to increase as companies change, restructure, grow, shrink, etc.
Right.
So I do think the promise has to be, we will develop you for opportunity both within the company as well as outside the company.
But I'm also thinking that because as PASHA, as I said, we want to be a responsible corporate citizen, and we want to make sure we improve the lives of the people in Azerbaijan, the countries where we operate. We are for this movement. We need to, for ourselves, understand our organizations well. Do we evolve or do we revolutionize ourselves towards that end goal?
Yeah.
We need to work with universities to make sure that they support us.
Yeah.
I also believe with what you're saying is that we need to develop an ecosystem in the country of more companies going the same route. Is that a right statement?
I think so. And we've seen that happen in many countries like Singapore and parts of the Middle East where maybe because of their smaller in scale and size, this recognition that we are an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem where we can have, a tide raise all boats, or we can have the tide bring all boats down. What you see our government sort of actively involving in building capability at the small and medium-sized enterprises, connecting them as parts of ecosystems so that they can mutually reinforce with bigger companies, the education system, changing tax incentives, etc. to support.
Yeah. So it's a bigger ecosystem, including the governmental support that we also need to look at, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We loved the last 2 days where you spent one day full with the CEOs. I think they were very positive in their attitude coming in, and they were more inspired going out, which is really thanks to
wonderful.
you.
Thank you.
We spent a full day with the chief HR officers who then can support the CEOs in their thinking. I'd like to thank you for your insights and for your wisdom shared in the last 2 days. I'm really pleased you liked Azerbaijan. We also hope you will be back and share the good news about Azerbaijan to your friends around the world.
Absolutely.
And thank you for this interview as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Ed.
Thank you.